So today's video, we're going to talk about Chainlink and why it's going to go up. There's been some changes, but also why it was also one of the worst performing assets of the previous cycle. I will explain that towards the end. And it actually was. It's quite alarming, really. But it should be very, very different this cycle. As much as I don't hold it, I think it's a really good asset now. I never used to think like that, but they have made some monstrous roadmap accomplishments, new developments. It's better, right? Before I go on to this video, Learning Crypto, Black Friday sale. These are the prices that you can get. They end very, very soon. So make sure you don't delay. They're normally a lot higher. 60% off, 50% off annual plans. Ridiculous. Anyways, Chainlink. A lot of hype about it. Now, I'm going to tell you now what I see on YouTube I majorly don't agree with. And if you know that, you'll know that from me, right? If you're new around here, feel free to subscribe. I will give you a little bit of dose of realism in terms of where it can go. There is genuine accounts saying it's going to go to $800. Don't see it personally when you do the maths. However, cross-chain settlements is the buzzy word at the moment. And this makes freaking obvious sense. Thank God. I've always criticized Chainlink for being very much one-dimensional, just plumbing for the space, for the API systems to work with, exchange providers, price providers, balancing and all that kind of stuff, right? But what they didn't have was something that would multiply beyond different chains. They had a substrate element with Polkadot, which is fine, but they didn't really have much else other than obviously Ethereum, right? Now it has massive elements to it, which is going to scale it. Huge, right? So that changes it. It gives it more revenue. It gives it more, security as well. And we often find that Ethereum's not the best for security, but this will make it much better. So as a bit of plumbing for the industry, it has a bit of more of a use case and it's going to work better. You can also stake it, but it's very, very limited still. But the stuff like this makes things good. And I like the look of it, right? But let's talk about the price and where it can go. Now, I will come on to the nitty gritty of the obvious in terms of where it went in the previous cycle. Yes, it went to $50, but it was pretty meh. That's just due to Bitcoin doing what it did, but it kind of tailed off a little bit. And I did price predictions in the past on Chainlink explaining it would go out of the top 20, and it did quite drastically really in the previous cycle. But it's had a massive pump. It had a massive, massive pump in the BTC pair in the previous cycle, and it didn't really materialize in, throughout that cycle. It did it before. It did it in 2020, which was a bit odd. It was one of the top performers in 2020. So all-time high, very, very clear and obvious. We're broken out of a key level here, which is why we're sitting at $14. Now, I still think there's a lot of multiples in this, not massive amount of multiples versus what it would have been, obviously, if you were buying down at $7, $6. But you can see there's certain levels of interest, right? The fib is really nice on this, right? You can see that very, very clearly in terms of current levels of structure. Now, when we talk about price predictions, yes, we probably are going to retest these $23, $28, $34 levels, right? Kind of obvious. It's probably going to be a 786 one around here as well. They all multiply and kind of have that methodology around the mathematics of the Fibonacci, and it works very, very well. However, what I'm interested in more is up here. Now, these are kind of the obvious levels. But as I said before, and I kind of touched on, there's accounts out there that think it's going to do a 30x. It's going to do a $800 run. I find that very, very unlikely. Now, why? Markets go up, markets go down, cycles will happen and all kinds of good stuff. Now, yes, the developments are great, but you've got to have a degree of sense, right? At the minute, when we're talking about, 30x, right? Crazy numbers. Go into Ethereum's market cap of $251 billion at the current stage. That is a $451 Chainlink. If I had conviction in my cryptocurrency investment skills, I'd buy that today if I think that was going to happen. Do I think that's going to happen? No, I don't. I don't think that's going to happen. If a coin of this magnitude now at 8.1 billion, roughly, give or take, goes up 30x, that is an absolute monstrous run and probably unlikely. Kind of my opinion on it. Why? Because that is a long way from $14 and the previous high was 53. I do think though it is going to be probably about $100 to $130 in my opinion, right? Just the way I feel that the market might go this year. next year, next cycle, sorry. I think this is a fantastic thing anyways. That is still currently, if you buy right now, a potential 10x, depending on where you bought, obviously. If you bought much lower, much higher. But it all depends on when you buy, right? So as I say, just to kind of give you some obvious senses, if you're buying around $7 and you were going up and above into that range, up much higher into this box, for example, you could be looking at like nearly a 20x, give or take, depending on where you bought, obviously. Now, with regards to that, if you buy in today, not going to be as high, but that is still a monstrous run. If we're going to look at $131 as a potential area of a target price, that is still an 8x from here and a $73 billion market cap, which would give it to the kind of levels where Cardano went to in the previous cycle. Could it go higher than that? Of course it can. It could maybe reach 100 billion, potentially. But it's still only 8.1 billion. Now, when I talk about price predictions, there's some scary ones. You got obviously $800 been said here. You've got obviously this one here, 240. There's quite a few big hitting levels. $2,000 link. There's some big numbers been thrown about 100x. So trying to calm the hype and put some water on it kind of does help, because the problem is, right, I said it before, people will look at these videos and go back in time and look at what has been said. The algorithm will then give you recommended videos from maybe 6 to a month, or however many months, 6 months, 12 months prior, when you're a new investor in Link, and you'll think, oh, I'm going to buy something at, say, let's just say, for example, it goes to $34, $50, whatever, and people think from that point it's going to go up to like $500 and still think they're going to make money. Chances are people are going to be selling from down here when they're bought, they're going to be selling at $100, $200, give or take, very, very easily. If it starts going crazy, it will. But I still think if it goes to $131 or even $200, that is a massive, massive, massive run and a massive element of wow, success, right? But as I say, there'll be people out there that'll be like, I bought at $50. To make some good money, it has to go to at least $300, right? Scares me. It really does scare me. So be mindful. For me, talking about the obvious levels in terms of fibs, that is the one. That between $100 and $130, if you are buying today, or if you've been buying and you've been multiplying your bids from all these low levels and you've not taken anything off the table at that point, you probably should. Let's talk about my really savage observation regarding what happened in the previous cycle. Now, the two big booms in the previous cycle was around the start of May and also in November, right? The 11th of November, or roughly around here. So this was when Bitcoin hit 60,000 and it melted quite a bit. Then it went back up to 69,000, right? This was Chainlink in August 2020. It had a massive run, right? If you held Chainlink at that point and made a massive run in the BTC pair, you would have made a lot of Bitcoin. If you sold and never bought back into it, you were laughing, even though the $50, $55 all-time high, whatever it was there. This didn't do very well in this bull market. For some weird reason, in this year, it went down quite a lot. I don't know why it did. It dropped like literally 50%. And you could probably argue, actually no, there you go. So it went down 78%, 79% versus BTC. From this top, misperformed. It did horrible. I don't know why. But this is also potential opportunity, right? When we look at where it is right now, kind of obvious really, when we're looking at this, we're at levels of resistance, but obviously it went much lower. There's a massive element where it could actually retrace quite a lot of this price and be a really good Bitcoin gainer when you think about potential of what it could be doing. Now, it could maybe multiply 2 or 3 times your BTC if you're buying, if you're going back up to some of these levels. It's a bit of a weird one because it had that big massive push in that August 2020 and the previous cycle it never. So makes you wonder, right? Why? Well, probably because of what it was at the time. It wasn't a great asset at the time 3 years ago. It really wasn't. It had no real revenue structure. the team were a bit iffy in terms of direction, and then obviously the developments and like what's kind of came about over the last 3 years has been really, really important. You got to remember as well, the way they marketed it back in those days as well, they had a few little sneaky logos. And if you go back on Google and look on like Wayback Machine, you'll see certain logos which were actually falsely kind of represented, which made it kind of push a little bit. And then the DeFi kind of pop happened and Chainlink was a part of it. Now, does it make it a bad asset? Definitely not. I see massive opportunity here where you can grow your Bitcoin potentially, and most importantly, grow your USD. Chainlink is a solid asset now versus what it was 3-4 years ago, in my opinion. Problem is, it depends on where it's going to go. And I've said that before, the hype on YouTube is really big. And this is why I want to try and put my kind of thoughts on it and think, well, might not be as mental as you think, right? People calling for 70x is ridiculous. 70x. Let me just put that into context of a 70x. Bitcoin, to compare it to Bitcoin, sorry, it would be a 90x. See what I mean? It's a bit crazy, right? So let's just calm down. But yeah, $100 to $130, I see it going probably, yeah, kind of makes more sense doing it that way. I can't see it going smashing through $200 with ease, but some people do. So I would say between $100 and $130, if you buy in at the $6, $5, whatever dollar level, and you're not taking any profit at like that 100 region, you probably should be. Anyways, if you enjoy my stuff, leave a like, subscribe, all that kind of good stuff. Reminder, offers, last chance.